Pineapple. I am sorry to tell you that I am not going to apologize. I know the bad words that have been said to me about the way I have treated Chiedza, and yes, perhaps I could have done better, but still, I will not apologize. I will not apologize because I have spent my entire life apologizing. If I could have said sorry to my father for having been born a girl, I would have. All he had done when he was raising the 9 daughters he had sired was spit in our direction whenever we failed to carry out an order, or failed to rein in the oxen in the field, or failed to bring his food before sunset. Useless girls, he would say, busy wasting seed on people who are going to enrich other families. Oh my God, oh my ancestors, what have I done to you that you curse my loyal soul? Being around my father was therefore an exercise in non-verbal and mumbled apologies. My harvest could have been better had I had sons, he would say. Now look what these girls have brought. A half shed when others have filled their sheds with harvest. I am sorry, I would mumble under my breath. The oxen broke out of the crow last night, he would bellow on an early random morning. If I had had sons, they would have made sure the animals were tied and the crow was secure. I am sorry, I would mumble under my breath. When I got married, I was glad to escape my father's household, but not before I mumbled one last apology. Your husband crossed 3 villages to bring me the thinnest and leanest of cows. Silly girl, even the one time you could have made me proud, your aura is weak. I am sorry, I mumbled under my breath. Things did not get better after I got married, and I found myself apologizing again. I was the first wife, which was a delight to me. Every girl I knew wanted the coveted title of first wife because with it brought the respect that you were the first to be seen, and it also gave you the power to make decisions over the household and gave you a natural leader role. When I got into my husband's compound, I was so excited and eager to do something my mothers had failed to do. Produce a male heir. My mothers and aunts had cancelled me before I left home. Do it quickly, before the second wife arrives. No one will usurp your power as the mother of the heir and the first wife once you have had a son. But despite my eagerness, my womb remained closed off. I did all I could to conceive, but every month, nothing came. I visited the herb doctor and he gave me bitter plant after bitter plant after bitter root after bitter seed, and still nothing came. In my one ear, my friends gave me advice on how to and when to have a child, but in my other ear, I heard the whispers from my husband's family. Infertile, they said. Barren. She should go back. He should marry another one. The advice grew quieter while the whispers grew louder, until I started to sense my young husband's sluggishness as his movements became more and more shifty. I started apologizing again. I apologized when the new wife came and within weeks started to spit around the yard and their belly began to grow. I apologized to my beaming husband when he came to show me his eldest son Chawana in my heart. I apologized when baby after baby was born and new wife after new wife was brought, until the word sorry no longer held meaning for me. My visits to the herb doctor did not stop. I made him give me every bit of root and seed and concoction in his heart to try. Even when he said this mixture is to remove stones in the eyes, I would take it and try it to see if it would miraculously fill my belly with a child. I took to following him like an apprentice into the forays he took into the forest as he looked for herbs, and he would point the different shrubs and flowers out to me. This is for a festering wound, he would say as he peeled off the bark of a tree. This is for a rotten tooth, he would say, squeezing the juices of a sapling into a bottle. This is for a baby who refuses to quieten, he would say, ripping up a root he had dug from the soil and placing it into his rucksack of potions. These feathers of the wungwe bed, he would say, rummaging in an empty nest. I used in the meals of lighty husbands to help them stay grounded at home. He would also point out to me the shrubs and mushrooms that I should never touch, telling me which ones had a longer period before death and which could kill instantly. I took to learning like a woman with nothing else to do, and I became an expert at digging up roots and making potions. And for a long time still, nothing worked. Then one afternoon, 10 years into my marriage, after a hearty meal of round nuts and maheo, I hiccuped and felt the meal regurgitating somewhere in my throat. I stood up and rushed to a nearby bush where I left the meal, took some herbs to settle my stomach, and went to lay down. But the vomit became an everyday occurrence, and I held my heart in my hands. Either I had a serious condition or I was expecting. When my blood didn't come by the end of the moon, I was ecstatic. Finally, something to prove myself in the homestead. I knew too how important it was for me to have a boy. As the eldest wife, my son would still be the heir. So I pleaded with my ancestors for a boy. Please, I spoke to the unseen, long departed entities. For all the years that I have not deserted you, even when I was the laughing stock of the village and the homestead, please give me a boy. But I found myself apologizing again when I gave birth to a girl. Next one, I promised my husband, next one will be a boy. And I closed my ears to the snide remarks about another of my failures. But as I got to know the little girl I named Sekai, who had evaded me for so long, I fell in love. Her essence was enchanting. Her baby sense filled my nostrils and my heart with love. Her coos and her baby cries made me joyful because they confirmed to me that I was a mother and I had given birth to someone I loved. That was when I stopped apologizing. If I had failed to give my husband an heir, then so what? That was his problem. I now heard my own heir, and she would never go through life apologizing. In the years that ensued, I poured all I could into my daughter. Yes, I continued to try for an heir or for another child, but my attempts were half-hearted, and therefore they failed. I had already failed, and what was the point in trying too hard? So I gave Sekai my all. When you got the leanest chunk of meat, as there was no boy in the family to warrant us more meat, I dished it up all for my daughter. I gave her my best skins. I cooked her my most delicious meals. In the field, while the other children worked their potions, I forbade mine from working and did double duty, all because I wanted my daughter to have it better than I had had and to stop apologizing for being a woman. As Sekai grew older, I began noticing that she had a talent. Her singing voice was so golden that when she opened her mouth to sing, even the birds stilled and listened to her. Her voice was so good that she could sing the gods into their pen, that even the wind took a breather to listen once she opened her mouth. One day when she was 12 and she had sung to the family after supper, I had nudged my husband. Look at your daughter, I said to him. Listen to how good she is. She will enrich any home she marries into. We should find a rich husband for her, and you will get a good bride price for her. But he had laughed. She's not going to marry a rich husband. Remember Tonga? He asked me, and I nodded. Tongai was a headman, and he dedicated his life to taking care of people's livestock in the pastures. His family was one of the poorest in the village, and he had no livestock of his own. Yes, my husband continued. Tongai's father and my father were friends, and they had agreed upon each other that they would exchange a daughter and a son to give Tongai's family's name strength. But both men only had sons, and as the eldest son, it is up to me to make sure that that vow is upheld. Your daughter Sekai is the daughter of the eldest wife, and she'll marry Tonga's son once she is of age. My jaw dropped, and I found myself wanting to apologize again. I stopped myself in my tracks. My own daughter, the one I was sacrificing everything for, marry a pauper, never. So the next day I went into the forest and looked for the herbs that the herb doctor had told me never to touch. In my heart, I pounded them mercilessly while thinking of a plan. I had to be as far away from him when it happened. The herb killed instantly, and I wanted no finger pointing back at me. Then the plan came. The third wife had an 8-year-old son who could not speak but could hear. On the morning we prepared to go to the fields, and my husband prepared to go to the ndari to drink with his friends. I stole his gourd. He was known for refusing to share drinking with other people, and I placed some of the poisonous portion in the handle, and after he had gone, sent the mute boy with the gold. The news of his death came while we were in the fields, and after we buried him, his son became the head of the house. I did not care much about him, even though he was unkind to my daughter and I. The second step of the plan had to be put in motion. I had the feathers of the Wungwe bed. Now I had to find a man who would bring me dignity. I heard of him before I saw him, a wealthy carver who had no wife, but loved his daughter very much, that he had vowed to have no other children with him and make his daughter the sole heir. To meet him, I stole the beautiful skins of the second wife and went to his home a village away under the pretext of making a purchase. In his carving heart, he showed me carving after carving, and I oohed and ahed over them, waiting for a moment in his concentration where his concentration would lapse, and wish I would sprinkle the grounded feathers into his gold. It was a whirlwind romance. One day he was following me to my village and camping outside our homestead with the carving I could not afford. The next, he had lined up a procession of cattle for my Rora. Yes, I did see the girl when we finally arrived in the carver's compound, and I could see that she was spoiled, but to be honest, she was none of my business. I had not come here for her. I had come to give my daughter what I had never had, an apologetic life. Yes, as the new woman of the house, I had to clip her feathers a little. She had been the only female in the homestead for far too long, and she had so much superiority in hair. But by clipping her feathers, I wanted to let her know that I was the mother of the house now. I made her work around the homestead, and again, I would not apologize for that. No woman has ever died from working hard, or from sweeping the floor, or from cooking for her family of 4. I had done worse when I was her age, harnessing oxen big enough to trample me to death and lugging loads of rapoko and millet into the homestead, and I did not die. The work the girl did was just what other unspoiled girls in the village did. If I had been cruel to the girl, or wicked to her, believe you me, she would have gone the route that Sekai's fathers had. But the girl was really no threat, and we needed someone to help around the house. I was not cruel to her. I let her eat. I let her wander around the compound. I let her be. If I was cruel to her, then my cruelty was only in ignoring her. My main concern was my daughter, and on how to get her to be seen by the wealthy men who crisscrossed our yard to come and get carvings made or collected. I sat by the gate, assessing the men by their skins and seeing which ones were worthy for my daughter's entertaining voice. And when the call to entertain the princess initiation came, I was ready for it. The king himself and the young prince. If only my young girl Sekai would get closer to them, and then I would sprinkle some of the Wungwe bird's feathers into their drinks. Then Sekai would never have to apologize. The end. Thank you for coming to this third installment of the African Cinderella, and thank you for viewing. Thank you for subscribing. As we continue with the story, I hope you watch the previous 2 installments and you stay for the next 2 installments. Thank you so much for subscribing. Love you long time. Bye.